In this video, we're going to talk about one of history's greatest military mysteries. How did Genghis Khan's army conquer half the known world without the massive supply chains that brought every other empire to its knees? While Rome, Persia, and China needed thousands of carts and tens of thousands of porters just to keep their armies fed, the Mongols traveled faster, fought longer, and dominated harder, all without a single supply wagon. Today, we're diving deep into the ingenious system that turned what seemed like a fatal weakness into the ultimate strategic advantage. The foundation, born in the saddle. To grasp why the Mongol army didn't require conventional logistics, we must first understand their identity. The Mongols weren't farmers conscripted and trained for battle. They were warriors from birth. Mongol children learned to ride horses between ages 3 and 4. By adolescence, they could shoot arrows accurately from horseback at full gallop. Their entire existence was continuous military preparation. Every single Mongol warrior maintained 3 to 5 horses in rotation. The implications of this were staggering. While European cavalry needed to halt and rest their mounts, Mongol troops simply changed horses and continued at maximum velocity. Their travel speed reached 100 to 120 kilometers daily, double or even triple the pace of conventional armies. This mobility alone was a weapon that most opponents couldn't counter. The revolutionary diet. But their most astonishing adaptation was sustenance. A European soldier required approximately 1.5 kilograms of dry rations each day. A Mongol warrior survived on fermented mare's milk, called airag, which functioned as both nourishment and beverage. A few strips of dried meat stored in the saddle, along with cheese as hard as stone, could remain edible for months without spoiling. In desperate circumstances, they would slice a vein in their horse to drink fresh blood, an immediate protein source that didn't require killing the animal. Consider this. A European force of 10,000 soldiers needed at least 2,000 to 3,000 horse-drawn carts for provisions. The Mongol army? They needed only horses to ride, because horses simultaneously served as transportation, food source, and instrument of war. War feeds war, the devastating philosophy. Yet how could they sustain campaigns lasting months with such minimal provisions? This brings us to the brutal strategy Genghis Khan perfected: war feeds war. Hunting on the move. The Mongols were exceptional hunters. During marches, they hunted everything edible: rabbits, deer, even wolves. They didn't require time to prepare elaborate meals. Meat quickly seared over flames, or even consumed raw, sufficed. Livestock herds traveling with the army provided a mobile food reserve. Sheep and goats grazed independently along the route, feeding themselves before becoming meals when necessary. The conquest formula. But the primary food source emerged from conquered territories, and here the Mongols demonstrated remarkable strategic intelligence. Upon approaching a city, it delivered a straightforward ultimatum: surrender. Relinquish 10% of your wealth and provisions, and exist peacefully. Resist, the city faces total massacre. Everything gets plundered. It sounds merciless, perhaps, but it represented an extraordinarily effective strategic calculation. Most smaller cities chose capitulation, and consequently the Mongol army secured supplies without losing a single arrow. Cities that resisted and eventually fell became cautionary examples, making subsequent cities surrender more rapidly out of terror. One devastated settlement could prompt 10 following cities to yield without conflict. Intelligence, the hidden weapon. Another critical factor was reconnaissance. Before penetrating any region, the Mongol army dispatched scouts ahead to collect intelligence: which territories possessed abundant provisions, which settlements were vulnerable, which paths had reliable water sources. They never ventured into unknown territory. That would be suicide. Every campaign was meticulously planned regarding routes, timing, and available food sources. This advanced preparation meant they could move with confidence and speed that seemed supernatural to their enemies. The decimal system, organizational genius. Now let's examine organization, because an army, regardless of its provisions, will disintegrate without proper management. Genghis Khan established an elegantly simple yet devastatingly effective decimal structure. 10 men formed one Arban squad. 10 Arban created one Jagan company of 1,000 men. 10 Jagan became one Mingan battalion of 1,000 men. 10 Mingan composed one Tuman division of 10,000 men. Why was this system brilliant for logistics? Because each unit achieved remarkable self-sufficiency. An Arban of 10 warriors managed their own food procurement, horse care, and distribution of spoils among themselves. They possessed no separate logistics corps. Every warrior was cavalry. Every cavalryman maintained himself and supported his comrades. There existed no distinction between support personnel and combat personnel. Everyone simultaneously fought and remained self-reliant. Iron discipline, the Yasa Code. Discipline played an equally vital role. Genghis Khan's legal code, the Yasa, explicitly mandated spoils of war must be distributed equally by unit. No individual profiteering permitted. If one warrior in an Arban deserted, all 10 faced execution. If one Arban fled, the entire Yagun suffered punishment. This collective responsibility system guaranteed everyone protected their comrades, including in food distribution. No corruption. No personal hoarding, no officers feasting while soldiers starved and thirsted, unlike numerous other armies of that era. Strategic geography, choosing battles wisely. Despite their prowess, the Mongol army couldn't dominate every landscape, and they recognized this reality intimately. Examine a map of the Mongol Empire closely. You'll observe they prioritized conquering the Eurasian steppes, target territories, grasslands for horses, fertile plains abundant in provisions, major trade routes, numerous prosperous cities, areas deliberately avoided, Southeast Asian tropical jungles, horses couldn't survive, cavalry rendered useless, high treacherous mountain ranges, difficult movement, scarce food, waterless deserts. Though the Mongols were remarkably resilient, they weren't foolish. Even the mightiest warriors don't pursue suicide missions. Perfect timing, seasonal warfare. Campaign timing received equally careful consideration. Major offensives typically commenced in spring when fresh grass emerged. Horses had plentiful forage, and mare's milk was most abundant. By late autumn, when vegetation began withering, Mongol forces usually withdrew to the steppes or garrisoned in subjugated regions. They rarely engaged in winter combat unless absolutely essential, because horses weakened and food grew scarce. For instance, when Mongol forces advanced into Europe in 1241, they selected a route through the Hungarian plains, one of Europe's wealthiest livestock-raising areas. Not coincidental, that was calculation. And when intelligence arrived that Genghis Khan's successor, Agede Khan, had perished, they retreated immediately. Partly for political motivations, certainly, but also because European winter approached, unfavorable conditions for a distant campaign. The fatal weaknesses. Having absorbed all this, the Mongol army's logistic system appears flawless, but it possessed critical vulnerabilities. Extended sieges. The Mongol army excelled at mobile warfare, but protracted sieges of fortified cities for months presented severe problems. They didn't maintain long-term food reserves. If the surrounding area had been stripped clean or populations evacuated, the Mongol army began starving. That's precisely why many major cities like Vienna, Constantinople, and Japanese settlements survived Mongol assaults. Unfavorable terrain. When confronting dense forests, marshlands, or precipitous mountains where cavalry couldn't function effectively, the Mongol army became nearly impotent. The disastrous 1293 Java campaign provides evidence. In tropical forests, no grass existed for horses, hunting proved difficult, and disease spread rampantly. The world's most formidable army retreated in disgrace. Scorched earth tactics. When adversaries proactively destroyed food supplies, incinerated crops, and withdrew, the Mongols faced crisis. In 1223, when the Mongol army pursued Russian and Cuman forces, the enemy employed this policy. Nothing to plunder, no civilians to supply provisions. The Mongol army began exhausting its resources. Fortunately for them, few opponents possessed sufficient resolve to annihilate their own settlements and possessions. But when they encountered such determination, it constituted a significant obstacle. Distance from the homeland. Finally, distance itself became a weakness. The farther from the mother steppes, the more vulnerable the Mongol army became. Horses struggled to acclimate to foreign climates. Warriors had no secure retreat locations. Supply lines stretched dangerously thin. The Mongol Empire achieved its vast size not because they could venture everywhere, but because they selected the correct destinations at optimal moments. The answer. So there we have it, the solution to the mystery. The Mongol army didn't need logistics in the traditional sense. They possessed a radically different logistics system, one that perfectly suited their capabilities and circumstances. A system founded on nomadic lifestyle, transforming every warrior into a survival specialist. War feeds war philosophy, exploiting all local resources. Flexible organization with iron discipline. No corruption, no waste. Understanding their advantages and limitations. Only engaging in battles they could win. The Mongol Empire didn't conquer the world through magic or supernatural power. They achieved it by adapting flawlessly to their environment, converting what others perceived as a weakness, absence of logistics, into advantages of speed and flexibility. The timeless lesson. The lesson resonates through history. Sometimes superiority isn't about possessing more resources. It's about understanding how to effectively utilize what you have. That represents genuine strength. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other compelling historical analyses. And in the comments below, share your perspective. What do you believe was the most crucial factor in the Mongol army's success? Was it the nomadic lifestyle, psychological warfare tactics, or military organization? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video.